Political simulations like Model UN go back about 100 years. We'll talk about them as educational co-curricular activities, fostering critical thinking, debate skills, and diplomacy. It's Academe Today. Model United Nations is exactly what it sounds like, an educational simulation for students in high school or college to learn about international diplomacy, policymaking, and communicative leadership. With me today to talk about this co-curricular activity is Dr. Kevin Freeman from UNCP's Department of Political Science and Public Administration. Welcome back to the TV studio, Dr. Freeman.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Liddy.
It's been a while, but
has.
you used to host some shows here and you've been a guest on many shows.
I have.
So we're glad to have you back, this time to talk about Model UN.
Great.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about this class or club at any school? What would it be like typically?
Well, sure. Model United Nations is a simulation, and it's done at the high school level, it's done at the college level, in some places it's done even at lower levels where students will represent the interests of a particular country. And they participate in a conference where there will be other schools competing against them who also represent the interests of different countries. And there is usually debate, diplomacy, politicking, and other things like that where people argue their case. They try to create consensus among a wide variety of different people with different viewpoints, and ultimately create documents or legislation that everybody is satisfied with. So there's politics, diplomacy, and compromise that are all involved in the process.
Now, at some schools it might be for academic credit, at some it might just be a student club. So what is it at UNCP?
Well, it's been an interesting evolution. When I first started the program about 10 years ago, it was club only. And as we got more participation, we eventually turned it into a 1 credit hour course, and now it is a 3 credit hour course that we offer every single semester. But we also have club as well. But one prerequisite of the club is that you had to have done Model United Nations as a class at least once before you can do it in the club, because there's less supervision there.
Okay. Now there's a national organization backing this, or what?
It's all done regionally. I mean, there is a national Model United Nations conference that's done. There's one that's done in New York, and there's one that's done in Washington, D.C. every year. But there are also regional models that are scattered throughout the country, and we participate in the Southeastern model, which is in Atlanta every November.
Okay, but then who do they pull the judges from if there's not a national organization per se?
Well, each of them is a nonprofit, and so it's really up to them independently to find guest speakers for all of the conferences. There's a board of directors who involves themselves in the process of creating the conference. I was on the board of directors for 4 years, as a matter of fact, and Dr. Booman in my department is serving on the board right now. And it is their job to organize the conference and to make sure that it works every single year, but they really are operated independently of one another as separate nonprofits.
And how long have you personally been involved in Model UN, either as a student or a faculty member?
I never did it as a student, believe it or not. My first exposure to Model United Nations, we actually did Model Arab League when I was at my previous institution at University of Alabama, Birmingham. And when I got the position here at UNCP, I wanted to continue that, and I found out that years prior that we actually had Model UN back before I came here, and so I resuscitated the program, starting first with Model United Nation or Model Arab League, and then after doing that for a couple of years, Dr. Martin Slan, who was the former Dean of Arts and Sciences here, suggested that we move into Model UN, which we did, and the rest is history. We've been doing it about 10 years now.
What kind of skills do you think the students get out of it?
Terrific number of skills that they can use not only at the university but also in life once they get out, because they learn diplomacy, they learn public speaking, they learn writing and research, and they learn how to get along with people who might think differently and have different viewpoints from them and create a system of compromise. So valuable skills that you can use pretty much at any level in the workforce. So we try to push it that way and tell students that you're going to get so many fabulous skills. And it looks great on a Vita, and it helps students if they want to get into graduate school or law school. And we have a lot of success stories related to that.
Is it the kind of hands-on, engaged pedagogy that no lecture course could even attempt to accomplish?
Absolutely, and it doesn't matter how well you teach the class, how well you practice when you're in class, there is no substitute for actually for students getting that firsthand experience. So when they go to Atlanta in November, or when they go to Charlotte in April, and they're there suddenly with 500 or 600 or 700 students from schools all scattered throughout the Southeast, then it becomes a reality that, wow, this is why we're here, and students get a fantastic experience out of it, and when they come back, they can't wait to do it again. They're usually hungry to repeat it over and over again. And that's how you get good, is you get people doing it more than once.
Well, then tell us a little bit about the specific preparation for any given
Sure.
year.
There's really 3 or 4 components. You have to research your country, and this semester we're 4 different countries. We're Costa Rica, we're Norway, we're Iceland, and we're Italy.
Is that because you're a large contingent
Right.
and they needed to spread out
We
the
have
countries?
29 students this
Okay.
semester, and each country only has a maximum number, so we have enough students that we can take 4 countries. So they have to research their country's foreign policies and domestic policies, of course. And then each committee, every student is assigned to a committee, and those committees each have 2 topics that they are expected to research that they will be debating during the course of the weekend that we're at the conference. So not only do they have to know their own policies, but they have to know their policies related to the topics that are at hand. And then it also behooves them to know a little bit about what other countries are going to be, how they are going to approach things as well. So they have to write a position paper that prepares them, that they have to submit prior to us attending the conference. And then, of course, they have to learn rules of procedure, Robert's rules, to learn formal etiquette as far
Parliamentary
as
procedure?
Parliamentary procedure, exactly, because that's what they use at these programs. So, yeah, it's complicated. There's a lot going on. It's intimidating for students who have never done it before, but once they get there, they kind of immerse themselves in it, and it works out very well.
That seems like a lot of extra work for the faculty member, so why do it?
It is, but it's a labor of love. I mean, it's something that I know this sounds kind of cliche, I suppose, but I get a lot. I really get a lot of positives out of seeing these students grow and develop as public speakers. I mean, we've had students who do it for the very first time, and they're nervous and they're twitchy and they're not very confident in their public speaking abilities. And now those same students are SGA presidents, and they're going to law school. And so me seeing that evolution of these students coming from nervous freshmen to confident student leaders as their juniors and seniors, I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of that. So it's very much worth it for me.
Well, let's talk about the students then. What kinds of students typically participate or are allowed to participate?
There is no restriction. A lot of people think you have to have a political science major or something in order to do Model UN, but there's no restrictions. We have majors from all over the university, everybody from history to political science, of course, but we have student athletes who do it. We have nursing majors who have done it. We have biology majors, so there's no restriction on that. So no prerequisites, just a willingness to, if you like doing diplomacy, if you like arguing, if you like doing politics, and this is something that's for you. And it's also an opportunity for you to develop your public speaking skills if you're not entirely confident with them.
Mm-hmm. What have been some recent accomplishments with your teams? And is that the right word? You call it a team?
It is a team, and they really work and play together as a team. I joke that Model United Nations is almost a family. They develop these working relationships with one another that develop into long-lasting friendships. And Dr. Liddy, I have to tell you, particularly over the last 5 semesters, this university, our team has really blossomed into one of the strongest teams in the Southeast. We've won numerous awards at both the national level and the regional level, and it's very rare these days where our students don't come back with handfuls of awards, and I would safely say that in the regional conferences that we participate in, we easily rank in one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 schools that participate. So this program is developed from one that really never won anything for years and years to one that when other schools are preparing for it, they say UNCP is one of those schools that you guys need to watch out and maybe learn something from, because they're going to be one of the strongest teams at this conference.
Well, then that's to your credit, and Dr. Booman, I think, sometimes
It
assists you,
is some,
right?
but a lot of it, we can only do so much. You know the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. The students, there's a lot of initiative and a lot of things that the students have to do on their own to prepare for these conferences that really we can't teach them, we can't prepare them. So they have to have a willingness to learn, they have to have a willingness to work, and then they have to travel to Atlanta or Charlotte and have all these skills manifest themselves. So it's a gradual process, and I think our students find it very rewarding as well.
I think at a recent competition, your group had 2 paper awards, which was unusual for the school to go home with 2 papers. You'll get outstanding delegate.
Yeah, there's 3 types of awards. There are individual awards that are given to individuals in each committee who are viewed as outstanding, that stand out. There are position paper awards that come from the position papers that I mentioned earlier that the students have to write ahead of time, and these position papers are graded by the people who serve on the staff for each of the committees, and those are team awards. So every student who contributes has to have a quality paper in order for the university, for the team, to have a chance to win a position paper award. So one bad position paper can hurt the entire team's chance of winning. So we like those quite a bit because it shows that our students are good researchers, good writers. And then of course the awards that are probably the most coveted for us are the team awards, which are given to the schools that perform the best overall throughout the entire conference. And we've done very well on all 3 of those types of awards in the last few years.
That's great.
Oh yeah, I'm so proud of the team, and I can't brag enough about how strong our team is, and the university's finally starting to figure it out, which excites me for sure.
Good, good. Well, we have some video footage from a recent event, possibly it's the Charlotte event, and I think you shot it on your cell phone.
Sure.
For us. So why don't you tell us what we're looking
Yeah, I
at?
apologize for probably the crude quality of it, but these are students who are in caucus, so they are not technically in formal session here, and they're allowed to mill about the room. They're talking to one another, they're making deals, they're trying to compromise. Students are bringing their ideas into a group environment, and they're trying to combine their ideas and create documents that everybody can be happy with.
And here's the hotel that
And
you guys stayed at.
A random shot, the footage of the Omni. This is Charlotte. Yeah, we stay at the Omni Hotel there, which is nice and swanky in downtown. The students have a good time at
Good.
these shows for sure.
Well, we also have some photos from some previous conferences as well that we can look at, and you can tell us which teams we're looking at.
Sure, that's Charlotte from 2016, where we won more awards than any of the other schools at the university, at the conference, including UNC Charlotte, who we consider to kind of be our rivals, I suppose, for lack of a better term. We were really proud of that team. They won like 13 awards that year.
And that's Dr. Booman in the front right corner there. Yeah, right, okay. And yes, we can move on to another one. What are the students doing here?
They are talking and coming to compromise on things. So our student Nicholas Palmer there, who's graduated, is on the left, and he and these other delegates from other schools are combining their ideas and trying to create one document that everybody is satisfied with, that they can introduce to the body as a whole. So everyone brings in their own ideas, and then they have to play a little game of give and take, a little politicking here to create that living document that everybody is satisfied with, that ultimately they will vote on and approve at the end if all goes well.
All right. Which group was this?
This was our first appearance at the National Conference in Washington, D.C. This is in 2016, where we finally got this is in 2015, sorry, where we finally got enough money to be able to send a small group to D.C. We represented Brazil, and we came back with a team award our very first year. So that was I was really proud of that group of students. We actually got to visit the Brazilian embassy while we were there, and we talked with some people on the ambassadorial staff there who gave us some Brazilian perspectives on things, and it was a really neat experience for the team.
I remember reading the news coverage of that you had lined up a trip for them to the Brazilian embassy. That's great.
And this is, looks like this is last year's Atlanta conference, so this would be last November 2016, where we represented a number of countries, including Denmark, where you can see the sign there. And this was our best Atlanta ever. Historically, Atlanta has been a more competitive conference than Charlotte because it's bigger, it's been around longer, it's a little more established. And we won 8 awards at Atlanta last year, which was twice as much as we had ever won previously. So another team that I was really proud of. And you can see the teams get bigger and bigger. We brought about 30 students to Atlanta last year.
And what's going on in this ballroom here?
This is at the plenary session, so before everything really gets started, all of the teams from all of the schools meet in one room. They are introduced to the staff who's going to run the entire conference. There's usually a guest speaker that has been brought in to talk about some poignant issue related to the overall theme of the conference. And so this is at Charlotte, where there's about 400 students or so who are preparing, and once this talk is over, then they break down into their committee rooms and they wheel and deal and work for, oh geez, about 20 hours for the whole weekend. So they're putting in long hours those weekends.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the themes or problems that they work on? Like
well, they work on it every year.
Or?
They decide a different topic. Sometimes it can be anything from sustainability issues. It might be things like alternative fuel sources, cleaner energy. It could be immigration. But different committees are chosen every year with a running theme throughout a lot of them. So we do everything from, as I said, alternative fuels for fossil fuels to how to deal with forced migrations as a result of conflict areas or civil wars, to women's rights and the rights of indigenous people in displaced areas. So it just varies from conference to conference, but it's always something that's pretty timely and pretty poignant.
So when this semester did you find out, namely, which countries you had to represent and what the topic was?
We usually find out late in the semester prior. So for the conference that we're going to in Atlanta in November, registration for that started in I think April the 1st, if I remember correctly, and the committee is already chosen, or the staff has already chosen what the topics are going to be, and then we request countries and then cross our fingers and hope that we get the ones that we request. We've already put in for our countries for Charlotte. We haven't found out whether we got the ones that we asked for yet, but we asked for Egypt, Belarus, and Germany were our top 3 choices.
I didn't realize you could ask. I assumed it was randomly assigned. So
a lot of it's first come, first
Okay.
serve. First come, first serve. So you get that check to them, and that'll hold. Then they'll hold the spots for you.
Great. Speaking of the check, how is the program funded here at UNCP? And typically in your experience?
Yeah, it just varies from school to school. I mean, for us, we get an amount of money from academic affairs. They appreciate and understand the value that this program provides to our students. Given that the program is available to any student, that there are no restrictions, it is something that the entire university benefits from. And so the current administration has been kind enough to give us a pot of money that we can use to afford to go to 2 conferences a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. There are also fundraising opportunities, just like every other organization does, and we're getting to that point now where we're starting to get a few alumni donations. Since we've been doing this about 10 years or so now, we're developing an alumni base, and so hopefully this will continue to take care of itself. We're still looking for that sugar daddy who will help us write a fat check for us every year.
A big endowed donation.
That's right.
That lives off its interest earned.
Wouldn't
right?
that be nice?
That would be really nice. Now, I think you're writing a book about Model United Nations,
I am.
right?
There are a few books that are out there about how to develop a winning team, how to do well at Model United Nations, and I've decided to throw my own hat in the ring. There are a few decent books that are out there, but one of the things that I think has been missing from the textbook puzzle, if you will, is not very much has been written from the side of the faculty member or the administrator as far as how to create a program, how to develop a program, how to fundraise for a program. So a lot of the books that you see are directed towards the students. Here's how you research, here's how you write, here's how you speak, here's how you become a good delegate, and that's important, and that'll be included in the book as well. But there's another fundamental part that's missing from a lot of these books is how do you develop a program, how do you establish a program, and how do you continue that program and further develop it until it becomes self-sufficient, where it becomes something that you start winning year after year after year. And so I think that perspective is going to add a little bit of freshness to these books that are out there.
Are you interviewing other advisors at other schools?
I will, yeah, I've got a few in mind. There's plenty. The Southeast model in Atlanta arguably is one of the most competitive ones in the country, regionally speaking anyway, and so I've got plenty of contacts of people who I'm going to ask questions to and put out some surveys and get their feedback on it as well.
Now, you've hinted a little bit about this already, but students that you know who have participated since you've been here at Pembroke, where are they now?
A lot of them are still here, as a matter of fact, especially since the program really has started to develop itself into an award-winning one. We've had the last 2 SGA presidents, including the current one, are both Model United Nations alums. The last 3 SGA vice presidents are Model United Nations alums. I think there's currently 8 or so senators in the SGA who have Model United Nations experience, and it really feeds upon itself because a lot of the skills that they're learning in Model UN they can utilize in student government as well. Excuse me, and we've had a great record also of getting our students into professional schools and graduate schools. A particular feather in our cap right now is Jordan Dickerson, who graduated last year. She was a political science and history double major, and she's currently first year at the University of Virginia Law School, which is one of the strongest law schools, of course, in the country. I actually saw her today. She came and visited us. Okay. And she's on the staff at Atlanta, so she will be running the NATO committee that will have a number of students on. And a lot of our students now are getting to that point where once they have graduated, they're like, I really like this and I want to continue to do it. And so they apply for staff, and so they end up running part of the conference the following year. So we have several who are doing that now, so the program just continues to move forward, which is really exciting.
Right, so you have that good continuity as people...
That's what creates a winning program. I mean, the first few years that we were doing this program, we would get a lot of juniors and seniors who were just looking for an elective, and then they would participate once and they'd graduate. And then the next year or next semester when we did it, we'd have to essentially start all over from scratch. But now we have students who have done this 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times. They already know the ropes, and we can jump right into things, and they are mentoring the new students just as much, if not more, than I am. So the class is almost self-perpetuating itself, where I have to do less and less, which is good, of course. When the students are running the show, they're policing themselves, and it makes my job a lot easier, and that's how you become a strong program year after year. We're finally to that point.
And is it a repeatable course credit, or it's a special topics course, or how does that work?
It's a repeatable course. Students are allowed to take this class up to 4 times for credit, with the one caveat being that they can only take it once for major credit. So if they're a political science major, it'll count once towards the major, but they can take it 3 more times, and it will count 3 more times as electives. And when you think about it, we're researching different countries, different topics every semester, and so you're not doing the same thing every time. So that's how I justified us being able to do it multiple times.
If a student at UNCP wants to get involved, what course do they look for in BraveWeb exactly?
Sure, it's PLS 2060, Model United Nations. PLS 2060 Model United Nations. Again, no prerequisites for the class. There's usually a cap of 20 students, 25 students on it. Just sign up and you're in.
Great. You mentioned law school a couple times, but what other career paths do you think Model UN helps prepare students for?
A lot of them are international studies majors. Many of them are interested in working for the government, working for the State Department perhaps. We have several who are involved who've gotten master's degrees like in international relations or master's degrees in public policy, who end up working for think tanks. They end up working for political campaigns where those research and writing skills of course can help them. We have several who are interested in doing non-governmental organization kinds of things or not working for nonprofits. So really anything that's in the political field where public speaking and research and writing is utilized, Model United Nations is an invaluable tool there. And a lot of students are taking advantage of those skill sets, and this is something that employers like to see. When they see Model UN, they know that there are certain skills that you already have or that you have developed as a university student. And so it looks great on the visas, on the resumes.
Are there other faculty itching to do this, or do you have it pretty much locked up over there in political science?
I don't know if locked up is the right way. I mean, Dr. Booman, who's in our department as well, he and I kind of co-tandem work on it. I mean, since he moved over to the graduate school, he hasn't been able to contribute quite as much time as he would like, although he is going to be the primary instructor of record next semester, although I'll be there to help him, of course. We've kind of kept it in-house in our department, but if there are other people outside of the department who are interested or maybe who have previous Model UN experience, I'd be more than happy to, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned.
Now you go to Berlin for study abroad in even-numbered years, right? You do a Maymester trip. Is that trip political as well?
It is. It is a political science class, and so we try to integrate some politics into it. We make sure that we visit both houses of parliament, the upper house and the lower house. We make sure that we meet with a few important either political officials or think tank people or other people in similar kinds of positions to give students sort of a German perspective. We visit the German State Department. We take a trip to the United States Embassy. So there are a lot of political things that come from it. But again, it's another one of those things where you don't have to be a political science major. We do other things besides politics, a lot of the sightseeing stuff, of course. We visit a concentration camp. We do a few excursions outside of the city. So it's a really neat opportunity. And Berlin is fabulous because it's really a good first city to do a study abroad in, because it's foreign enough that you know you're not in the United States, but it's comfortable enough where you're not going to get that heavy culture shock, whereas if you went to Tokyo or if you went to Thailand or somewhere like that. So there is some familiarity. Lots of the people speak English there, so there's not the heavy culture shock. It's a great first place to do a study abroad.
Right.
Just so like Ireland is.
I know, that's right. I've experienced doing that. Yeah, so your trip sounds cultural, historical, and political. How have you been able to arrange those really great political opportunities, those visits you mentioned?
Well, I kind of cheated, honestly, because in 2009 I got a summer Fulbright in Berlin, where I met a lot of people, made a lot of connections, and when I first started doing this study abroad in 2012, I made a lot of phone calls from people that I met during that Fulbright, and they helped to set me up with a lot of inside tracks in some federal offices and other places. I also speak the language, which helps, so I don't really need a third party necessarily to help me mitigate and organize things. So, and now that I've been doing it 5 or 6 times, I have established contacts, and I can just pick up the phone or shoot an email and say, hey, we're coming again this year, here's the dates, what can we do? So it's really kind of takes care of itself. It gets a lot easier after you do it 1 or 2 times.
It sounds like a great opportunity that students couldn't really arrange on their own.
No,
so,
and it's a dirt cheap trip, comparatively speaking. We do it for under $3,000, which is pretty affordable
for Europe.
For Europe.
Right. And so what will that course be called in BraveWeb?
That is, it's PLSS 3090. So if you're on BraveWeb, there's political science, but there'll be a category below it that says political science special topics. So it counts as a special topics class. And the course title is Regional Area Studies Berlin. Although it requires you to have an instructor override to take that class. So in other words, you need to talk to me and say, hey, I'm really interested in going to this trip, and I have to make sure that you want to go for the right reasons. You just don't want to go to party it up and drink beer, for example.
Yes, I know. From experience, you do have to filter out some of the applicants.
That's right. But as long as I know that your heart's in the right place, it's just a formality to get the override to get into the class.
Great. Well, I've enjoyed our conversation, but they're telling me that we are out of time. I learned a lot about Model United Nations in higher ed, and I hope you did too. Thanks to Dr. Kevin Freeman for being my guest today, and thanks to Professor Dollard's TV production class for showing us Academe Today.